TFL EV is brought to you by Flow Charger, maker of reliable, high-quality charging stations for your electric vehicle.
So I'm Chris Hazel from Zero EV / Mini Recharged.
Well, Chris, we're in one of your creations. So this is a classic Mini that has been converted to all electric, and you guys have done the powertrain. So tell me about what's under the hood.
So this has got a 19 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is made up with the 355 modules. So we've got 5 in the front, 3 in the rear to keep the weight distribution correct. Because this car is actually 15 kilos lighter than the original. So it means it handles the same and it drives just as well. And then we've got a Zonic 72 kilowatt motor with inverter. So we're kicking out probably just under 100 brake horsepower when in sport mode, which for a Mini is a bit of a handful. But yeah, they're really, really good fun. And then we've got 6.6 kilowatts of charging. So we can do a full charge in just under 3 hours, or I think it's about 9 hours or something in a little 3-pin, which I think is probably around the same in the US when you're on 110.
Yep. And then what's the range?
We're 103 miles WLTP, but to be honest, if you drive it really nicely, you'll get more, but if you drive it like an absolute loon, you'll probably get about 60 miles if you drive it really hard.
All right, as the British say, give it the beans. Let's see what she'll do. So this is 0 to 60 in about, what, 10 seconds, right?
This is, yeah, 10-ish in pure mode, and then you're just over 8 when you're in, I think they're calling it Pure Plus, I think is what's being called, mode.
Are you getting any torque steer?
No, so this one actually has equal length drive shafts.
Yeah.
So we redesigned this one to have the drive shafts the same, because we were getting torque steer originally.
And what's nice about this is that you've, like you said, kept the weight distribution the same.
Yeah.
So obviously, when you're talking about a classic car, right? You want to keep the nature and the driving dynamics unique to what the vehicle was, and if you start messing with the weight distribution, it does change that.
Yeah, I mean, because you're removing the smell, you're removing the sound. If you change the weight distribution as well, it's already been changed from the original quite a lot when it goes to electric, so you have to maintain the weight distribution. I mean, this thing just puts a smile on your face, to be honest. I do love it. Out of everything I've worked on, the Mini is definitely by far my favourite.
All right, so what's this scary looking red button here?
So this is prototype vehicle number 1. So this basically cuts the CAN bus to shut the car down.
Okay.
Mainly because it is the first prototype. And this also has the Smith's gauges that we designed, which has like direction you go in. You've got your state of charge and range, and you've got your motor temperature.
Yep.
But it's the original design that was in the original Minis.
And what are the modern gauges over there?
Because this is the prototype, we have an AEM display fitted to do all our data logging and stuff. The customer versions don't have that at all. It's just for our purposes when we're doing testing.
So the customer would get this?
Yes, correct. Your customer you get a really nice little shifter for just drive, neutral, reverse. All it does is just reverses the motor, but it gives you that, I don't know, that touch point and that feel as if you're sort of still semi in a classic.
So would you say this is more fun to drive than the original, or is it different?
I actually prefer this over the original, to be perfectly honest.
Okay.
The original, you were always worried, is it going to break down? Is it going to stop working? If it rains, is it, there's all those sort of things. Whereas actually this, you can just get in and drive it. But I think it's changing the dynamic of the car now. You've got something that you can drive every day as a daily driver around town. Whereas before in a Mini, it's a sort of car, maybe you drive it like a classic, like weekends and stuff like that. So I think around cities, I've got a feeling these will be a commonplace for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, it makes it, we have a classic Mini and it's a weekend car, right?
Yeah.
Because while it's a lot of fun to be back in 60 or 59 when this was first developed, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of downside to it. It's not the most comfortable car. It's not the most reliable car. It's not the most like commuter type car.
Yes.
But this, I think, when you electrify, it takes it back to something, or takes it to something that you can drive and keep up with traffic and then enjoy, not just the driving experience, but just like enjoy the fact that you can live with it.
Yeah, very much so. I don't know what more to say about this thing. I do love it.
Well, tell me
It's a
about
Mini.
tell me about your company now. You don't build this car, right? You're building or selling the components that electrify the car.
Yeah, so basically my company, we design, develop and produce bolt-in systems. So we've worked really close with Recharge Heritage and Mini to do basically a bolt-in kit, which is sort of a 1 to 2 day full install. Because we've managed to develop it on sort of a production facility, it means we're able to put a huge amount more time into the design and the development to make sure you've got a really nice, reliable, consistent system. It's not a one-off as such, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's just, yeah, it's a lot more refined, I suppose, and it's...
You're looking to actually come to the US, right?
Yeah. So I'm hopefully relocating to the US at the end of the year to get a setup over there, and then hopefully Recharge to start pushing Minis out in the US as well.
And so at some point, this will go beyond just Minis, right? So if you're in the US and you're working with a local garage and you want to electrify, like you were just showing me your 911 that you have. You have an 86, I think you said.
Yes, yeah, I have 86 911 GE body, or
Yeah.
930, I think a lot of people call it. And we've got a bit of other things, Land Rover Defenders, sort of all those sort of stuff. So there's a huge scope of options in the general classic car industry. It's just choosing the right ones that you can do in a good enough volume, I think, to produce a really nice, refined system.
Now, one of the things that I've always been a little worried about, and I want to ask you about this, is, when you take a car like a classic Mini, you're basically taking a time machine, right? We're in here and we're back in the 60s, but when you change the drivetrain, you're taking a component of that away, and you're kind of locking it into the current technology with electrification. What do you think will happen like 10 years from now when the batteries have more density and it gets more refined? Then you're going to have this strange kind of mishmash of 1960s and 2022 technology.
Yeah, so the way the system's designed with us is that we use a standard module battery.
Yeah.
So, and we've stuck to that size of battery because all the OEMs are just continually redefining that battery size. So in 5 years' time, the chances are you'll just be able to swap the battery out to a different battery, or a more power dense battery as such, and then be able to just, I suppose, upcycle it again to a new battery. One thing I mentioned is, at what point do you get to the point where you're not putting more battery in, you go, actually that's enough range, now let's produce a smaller, lighter battery. And I think within the next 10 years, hopefully that will happen.
And you're starting to see that with some of the new car manufacturers, where they're getting in the 500 miles of range, and you're seeing that with right now it's at the upper end, obviously,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So like the Tesla Model S Plaid, you're seeing 400 miles of range on some of these vehicles, and you think that will work its way into this as well?
Yeah, I think it'll work its way into this, and then you just need to decide when you're at the point where that's enough range. We don't need any more range. We're happy to now make the car even smaller, lighter, sort of at that point. So it's getting that sweet spot where you're never going to want 1,000 miles of range, because you're sacrificing the weight of the vehicle.
I'd like to have it. Well, it depends on the weight. That's true. At that point, you're getting into like commercial trucks and
Yes.
buses.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just juggling between that. But I am looking forward to the fact when the batteries start getting smaller but still having the same range.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, converting a classic's not easy, because you're always fighting with the space that's available.
Yeah.
Once battery technology gets to that point where you're not fighting with the available space anymore, I think you can really deliver something that's far better than the original, and it's on par with an OEM, that's what I'm excited about.
Now let's talk about kind of the conversion before we head back, or we can actually head back now.
Yeah.
Does this still have a traditional 12-volt battery to operate the lights and the auxiliary switches?
Yeah, so still full 12-volt battery,
Yeah.
but we also use the 12-volt battery for the contactors for the battery pack. So we still require the 12-volt battery to bring the high voltage system live.
Okay. So that's still there, and then here in Europe, I think you have CCS2, right?
Yes.
Which does that affect the way you change this at all, or does it really matter?
No, so the system's designed to work with CCS2 or CCS1. I think it's J1772 it's classed as in the US.
Yes.
But yeah, so it doesn't actually affect the system at all, because we run the Orion battery management system, which is a US company that produced that. So it's all set up for US, and then they've moved across to do the European market with us.
It's funny because I think electrification in the OEM level has kind of started in America with Tesla and some of the other companies, right? But it seems like the aftermarket has been more prevalent here in the UK.
Very
So
much
like taking classic cars or existing cars and electrifying them has become more of a thing here versus in America, and so now you're kind of going to America to start doing it over there.
Exactly. I mean, it's hard to tell. So California, obviously, there's a lot going on in California, but I think the US was ahead with the low voltage system for development for conversions, and then the UK got in but never got into the low voltage side. We went straight into the high voltage, so we sort of leapfrogged, I suppose, in a way.
So 12, like I remember I did a story on I'll let you figure out where the hotel is.
I have no idea.
Well, it's better than you driving on this side of the road. That's why I let you drive. I'm like, do an interview while driving. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I'd be on the wrong side already. But yeah, I did a story I want to say 10 years ago where a company is converting classic Porsches and Beetles using 12 volt, right? So it had a whole bunch of 12 volts.
Wow.
Yeah, very heavy.
Yes.
Not a lot of range. I want to say you were lucky to get 50 miles of range out of it.
It was probably twice the weight of the original as well.
Of course, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, that was you didn't have to cut the springs. You were already, you didn't have to bag it. It was on the ground.
My business partner actually did a 12 volt lead acid conversion back in 2017, I think. And that thing was so heavy with a DC motor as well. So it was a forklift motor. So things have really come a long way. I think in the last 5 years, things have changed massively.
I do hear a little bit of, is it drivetrain?
Yeah, so we got the whine from the gearbox, which, to be honest, we didn't want to mask because the Mini always had a bit of gearbox whine.
So you wanted to keep that?
I wanted to keep it, definitely wanted to keep it. I mean, it's not high enough pitch that it hurts your ears or makes you feel uncomfortable, and I think that was the main thing. Is the original classic Minis, you always had a gearbox whine. I mean, I always loved having them with the straight cut gears, so it really whined. But yeah, this isn't at that level.
And the other challenging thing is this car didn't have a lot of, shall we call it insulation to begin with, right? It was always just on the carpet. That was it, I think.
Yeah, it was always the insulation that was good for soaking up moisture on a Mini. Yes. Like the old classic Porsches, the same thing.
Yeah, and it did soak up a lot of moisture because these little channels here that run along the roof would fill up and then they would eventually rust and then you'd start getting water intrusion.
Yes, exactly.
And electrification isn't going to change that.
No.
So that's still an issue.
It's still a classic car at that level.
It is, yeah.
Very much so. I mean, the other thing is trying to get rid of little squeaks or rattles and stuff because suddenly you've gone quiet. You've not got this A-series engine screaming at you anymore. So it's sort of, how far do you go on silencing the car, I suppose?
And do we talk about how much horsepower does this put out now?
I think
more.
More, yeah. I think we're in pure at about 65, something along that.
Okay.
And then in pure plus, I think we've got up to 80 something. We're still fine tuning the car, so all the hardware is now perfect, locked down, production ready. But we're still making little tweaks to the software here and there for the drivability and the feel of the vehicle to get that dead right. And I think that's the bit that takes the time. That's why we need more people like yourself test driving these cars and going out in them, because I drive it every day, so I won't pick up on certain things.
Well, I mean, part of what makes a Mini is, of course, the size and, of course, kind of the quick steering, right?
Yes.
And that hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed because the weight.
As you can tell how we fit in here.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be in the back though.
Exactly. In an electric car, this would be the frunk. Do you have a frunk?
No, we don't have a frunk.
You don't have a frunk. Oh no! Tell me what's under there.
No.
Oh, look at that! It's very neat and tidy.
Where's that height? No, it's not.
So, kind of walk me through what we're looking at here.
So we've got the front high voltage battery pack here. This has 5 modules in, and this one is at. It doesn't actually say on here what it is. It's 11 kilowatt hours in the front, and it weighs 83 kilos in the front. And then we've got 3 modules in the rear. We've got our inverter here, which basically takes our DC battery, converts it to AC for the induction motor, which is hidden down underneath here, which I don't think you're going to be able to see too clearly.
It's hidden underneath.
It's hidden, but we also maintain a crash sensor as well, which is quite an important part on this. So if anyone does have an accident, at least it shuts the whole system down automatically. And then you do have a safety disconnect, big orange plug, just in case any mechanics need to do any work on the vehicle. We're also liquid cooled on the motor and inverter on this one as well. so it's sort of better for high temperature or hot weather climates.
I see you maintain the horn.
Maintain the horn, maintain the original brake system. So there's basically an electric vacuum system to maintain the servo assistance on the brakes.
And then the motor is transversely mounted?
Yeah, so the motor's here, and then there's a transverse gearbox which goes to the original type drive shafts either side.
So if you're a Mini fan, you'll note that in the original Minis, if your hands were cold, you would go over here and you could warm your hands up because that's where the radiator was?
Yeah, so with the radiator on this one's actually down in here now.
Okay.
The reason we've done that is because there's different models, different years of Mini, and they tended to vary which radiators they had on the side and what vents. So by putting the radiator there means it fits all models.
Yeah.
Because this is actually designed that when we produce it on a subframe that gets delivered to Minisport for Recharge to fit it. But it all comes on a pre-built subframe, so we've already done all the coolant systems, all the wiring for them to just lift up into the car.
And it would make sense to have the radiator in the airflow.
Yeah, very true. Very true. I mean, it doesn't need that much cooling. I mean, you're never going to go over 70, 80 degrees in these vehicles because they just run so much colder than an original engine.
Can we look in the boot now?
Yeah.
And notice how I said that the British way. It would be a trunk, yes. This would be the trunk in America.
Yeah, so in here we have another 3 modules inside the rear pack.
And you have some space actually, so you could actually use this as a traditional boot or trunk.
Yeah, and this has a DC to DC here, so that converts our high voltage to 12 volt to charge up the 12 volt battery, which is still hidden under there. And then we have our 6.6 kilowatt charger here.
Very neat and tidy package.
On this version, the new version, this is all underneath, so your actual boot ends up bigger again on the next variant of this.
And did you ever think about covering this up so that you'd have, more of a traditional?
Yeah, so this, because we're still sort of this is prototype car 2.
Okay.
So prototype car 3, which is just about to be built now, will actually have an in-boxed area. So it'll look clean, tidy. You can put your luggage in there then. Obviously this is kept very open so people can see what's going on.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, Chris.
I'm Jonathan Harper. I'm from one of the directors of Recharge Heritage.
So, Jonathan, you guys are the ones who are actually converting these, is that right?
Yes, it's been done on our premises just north of Manchester in the UK.
And tell me about the company. How long has it been in business?
The parent company has been in business since 1967. We've been solely into minis since that time. It was started by my parents after my father bought his first one in early 1960. Started racing the cars, grass tracking them and modifying them along with everybody else in that era.
How many have you owned?
Oh, you could be looking into triple figures.
Okay. All right, so tell me the process. What's a good candidate for electrification?
The base spec of a car, the quality of it really. The chassis is the base where we need to start, because obviously you're looking at a car that could be up to 60, 63 years old. Yeah, the chassis get natural wear and tear. There's
59 was the first year, right?
Yeah, the 59 was the first one.
year.
So we've got to make sure that the chassis is right, because of the electric performance puts a lot more torque through the chassis than the original petrol. So therefore, we have to look at primarily the chassis. Then there's the suspension. Then there's the brakes and the drivability. The electric system obviously has to be looked at, because we're changing the electric side on the high voltage, but the low voltage side with all the lights and electrical systems have to work correctly, so the car's fully road legal and is safe to use.
So let me ask you now, I just talked about kind of the mechanical bits and pieces of it from the electrification point of view. So talk to me about kind of the, if anybody knows minis, you know minis. So would you say an electric Mini is better than a gasoline-powered, an ICE Mini?
I wouldn't say that it's better.
Different?
I would say it's certainly different. I think as a day-to-day driving experience, without the maintenance and whatever else, then it certainly is better. The idea of this electric car is that we've captured the essence of the Mini. So the enjoyment, the fun factor, the smile factor that you get from the car is definitely there, but you don't have the maintenance or the problem of leaving a car in a garage for maybe a week or a month or whatever else. You come back to it and then you may have a starting issue. There could be a flat battery, etc. And you have to do general maintenance just to take it out for the weekend. With this, you don't have to do that. You just need to plug it in, make sure that it's charged up, and away you go. And the fun starts again.
Now, do you do any, like this one has a really beautiful interior. Do do any of that if your customer wants, for instance, to upgrade the interior, or do you leave that as it? Do you look for a car that's already in great shape?
Okay, so the idea of these cars is we've got 3 different options where we can convert a customer's car that's original.
Yes.
Yeah, so if you've got a Mini that's much loved and you want to keep it in the family, then we can convert that car and turn it into electric. So the next option is a procurement where we can source a car. So you give us an idea of what car you're looking for. If there's something special, maybe you want a Cooper or a special edition, we could do that. If there's a specific colour that you want, then we can find that and then we can convert that for you. And then the third option is a fully bespoke car. So you can basically design your own vehicle. Yeah, so you can choose the colour, you can choose the interior specification, you can choose the power option, you can choose anything that on this car, we can create it for you. So whatever you can imagine is a possibility.
So this was a tartan edition, I think.
This was a tartan edition, yeah.
And I take it those 3 choices get more expensive, right?
Yeah, they do, naturally,
yeah.
because it's like anything. If you want something that's personalised to yourself, then it's going to cost you a little more money.
And how much does the base conversion cost? If somebody wants to just get a base, the
base
first
conversion
option,
is starting from £42,500.
Okay. And then, when you get custom, how expensive can you go?
Well, the sky's the limit because it depends. Because if you want everything gold plating, then
very expensive.
Yeah, very expensive. But yeah, it's where people want to be, and that's the idea. That it's so that they can have their own Mini. And Mini's always been about the person that drives it. Yeah, and it's very personal to them. They have their own experiences, and growing up, I've always been around Minis, but everybody you seem to meet always has a Mini story. Yeah, they have their own adventures in it, or they were brought up with them as children, or whatever else. So everybody has a slightly different experience with the car and wants the car to do something different for them and mean something totally different to them as well.
And how long does it take you to do a conversion?
Sorry.
How long does it take to do the conversion? Let's say we have a Mini,
okay,
right? So we have a 93 Mini. If I bring it to you, and the
Okay.
Mini's in good shape, right? It doesn't have the usual rust problems.
Okay, so we would first go through a 120-point check
Yeah.
on the vehicle just to make sure that everything's in order, the suspension, the brakes, the systems that are already in the car. So we would check the chassis as well to make sure that it's in fit and perfect order. So if that all went through, then we would convert the car. It would take about 2 to 3 days.
That's not a lot of time.
No,
That's
from
not
start
a lot.
to finish.
Yeah.
So,
And how many have you done so far? Because that's number 1. Apparently.
Yeah, we
this
have
is number 2.
Yeah, that was number 1 test car. This is number 2 test car.
Yeah.
And then we have 2 other cars that we've produced as well that were special for Mini as well. So we have a 3rd test car that's in the pipeline. Once we've perfected the test cars, then we'll go into full production.
And if somebody wanted to get one of these in the U.S., could they do it, or is this just UK?
No, they can get it in the US or
yeah.
anywhere else in the world.
So you're doing worldwide.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
electrify it, put it in put it on the boat, ship it to America.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or if they have a car already over there, we can pick it
Bring
up.
it back.
Yeah. We've got a lot of experience with shipping cars around the world. We've brought them in for restorations and whatever else. Places like Singapore,
And they're
from the
small.
States and whatever else. Yeah.
A lot of them will fit in the shipping container.
Yeah, you get a big shipping container. We can actually get 5 in one of the big
Really?
shipping containers. Yeah.
So what's your favorite thing about the electrified Mini?
The simplicity of it.
Yeah.
The smiles per mile that I got out of it. Every test mile that I put onto the test car 1, every time I got out to charge it up, I wanted to get back in. I wanted to take the car back out and enjoy it.
And if somebody wants one, is there a website they can go to?
Yeah, if you go to rechargeheritage.co.uk,
Okay.
yeah, you can find all the information out there. It'll tell you about the cars, everything that we've been involved with, and the story behind the company and where we're planning on going for the future. So we're online on social media. So if you sign up to those, then
You can be.
yeah, we can give you all the details that are required.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate
superb.
it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so let's take this Mini for a drive. Now, the cool thing about electric vehicles, of course, is that there's nothing to really crank. You just turn it on. Handbrake still works the normal way, so you let go of the handbrake and then push it, put the brake on, put it in drive, I believe. Let's see if I'm in drive. Did I get it or didn't I get it? We'll find out in a second. Nope, didn't get it. So let's see here. What am I missing? So that's, what do you think I'm missing here? that drive? Let me make sure I got. Is that right?
Put your foot on the brake.
Yeah.
And you turn the key fully.
Okay. Yeah.
Now take your foot on the brake. Now put it into gear.
Is that gear, or do you have to go?
Just pull it back. Just pull it back.
Okay, that should be in gear.
That should go
All
in.
right, let's find out. Thank you. Let's see if it goes. Yeah. Whoa, we're in gear. All right, here we go. It's a little daunting driving not only an electric car, but an electric car in the UK, because of course everything is the other way around. So it seems pretty natural. All you hear is the drivetrain, and it's quite comfortable actually for a Mini. No need to shift gears, no need to use my left hand, which is awkward because I'm used to using my right hand to shift, because it is automatic, and it seems to be doing really well. So let's get on the open road and give it a little bit of the beans, and see how she drives. So once again, I gotta go on the wrong side of the road here. Same thing. All right, here we go. Give it a little bit of the beans and see how she accelerates. Oh, that's quick. Oh, that's very quick. I could get used to that. I could get used to that very quickly indeed. All right, merge onto traffic here. We'll go for a little bit of a spin around the neighborhood. I would say that's as quick, if not quicker, than the regular one. Because the issue, of course, with the regular one is that, oh, I can't go that way. The issue with the regular one is that half the time it doesn't start. The other time that it does start, doesn't run well. I don't think you're going to have any of those issues with this electric Mini. In fact, I think what you're going to have is just a lot of fun. The hard part with electrification is you're taking a car that's classic and a time capsule for the time in which it was built, and you're turning it into something that is much more modern. And the question is, go over here, does that work? You have this Frankenstein of a car that is from, well, 1959, but in reality has a powertrain from the year 2022. What does that mean when we get to the year 2032 and batteries are much more energy dense and quicker and smaller and lighter, and you can actually create a better car? Are you still in that kind of time capsule where it transports you back in time? So the question you have to ask yourself is it worth taking that classic car experience and making it into something that's more comfortable, more livable, more, in a lot of ways, easy to use for the modern time, but then losing some of that wonderful classicness of it? And I guess the answer is you could have your cake and eat it too, because they built 6 million Minis, and still a lot of them are out there. So you could have both this electric one, and you could also have the non-electric one in your garage, because they're small and they're affordable, and have a classic Mini and have an electrified Mini. And I guess probably that is the best solution of all. So I guess if this were my car, I would go with both the electrified and the classic, and keep the best of both worlds, because they're small and they're easy to store, and certainly they're easy to live with. As always, this is Roman reporting for TFL Classics. Thanks for joining me here in the UK, and I'll see you guys next time. Ciao.